Me 27F with my BF 28M of 7 years. I don't know what I did wrong. I guess I'm still in shock. I should have dealt with this yesterday, but I just sat and cried all day in the bathroom instead. I've always had trouble trusting people. My family is not full of the best people, and as a result, I had a hard time trusting people. I try to be nice and a good person, but I'm one of those people who will help someone, but then be terrified to ever ask for any help back. I met my best friend in high school 27F, too. She helped me out a few times with my family problems, letting me stay at her place and such, and I've been loyal to her since. I've let her stay at my place, helped her pay off debts, find a job, listened to all her problems, helped her move away from her abusive ex, all those types of things. She'd always welcome in my home and I considered her a sister. I met my boyfriend in university. He was my first everything, and he went way out of his way to make sure I trusted him. I love and appreciate him for this in ways I can't describe. I have always done everything I could think of to make him happy, from just telling him that I love and appreciate him daily, to back massages, to gifts, to paying for things, to trying whatever he wanted in bed. People saw us together and would say how sickeningly cute we are, and it wasn't any different when we were alone. I really thought I was a good girlfriend, he told me, looking me right in the eyes, that no one made him feel as loved and appreciated as I do. He told me this a month or so ago. 6 months or so ago, he said he was going to propose to me soon. I've never pressured him for it. I never imagined being lucky enough to be married. I was ecstatic at the idea of it, but he said he was going to be using his phone to set things up, so I couldn't check it for a long time, because I'd ruin the surprise. He and I have had an open phone, email, etc. policy since day one, even before he ever knew about my trust issues. We just aren't very private people, and these days, since we share all-out friends, a text to one of us is usually a text to both of us. He looks at my phone when I'm too busy to, and I usually look at his to read his messages to him when he's busy. It's just how we are, but I agreed not to look to not ruin any surprises, so I haven't looked at his phone in months. Yesterday, we threw a little dinner party for our friends. We recently moved to a new place with windy roads, so I was afraid of people getting lost on their way there. My boyfriend said to make sure to answer any calls while he showered in case they were lost. I got such a call, I helped, but when I ended the call there were messages opened with my best friend. I didn't want to look, but it's hard not to have your eyes jump to a word like fuck instantly. I don't want to repeat anything, but it generally was a message explaining how she couldn't wait to sneak off during this dinner party to have time with him once again. There were a lot of mention of what she'd enjoyed the last time, with messages from my BF agreeing. I just went numb. I scrolled up, and these messages went on for months. Essentially, to when he'd said he was going to propose to me. He hadn't been acting differently. I hadn't, either. My best friend has been talking to me exactly the same as always. I just don't understand. I can't understand. They know how destroyed I would be by this. They know how devastating cheating is to me. My boyfriend knows he'd rather break up amicably with me than cheat, even if it meant breaking up with me 5 seconds before he had time with someone else. I love these people more than anything. I can't understand what I did to have them feel I deserve this. I don't understand why he couldn't break up with me and maybe date behind my back then, when he no longer owes me anything, if he was afraid of ruining my relationship with her. I didn't know what to do. I just put the phone back and sort of numbly went through the dinner. My best friend and boyfriend went to get asparagus in the middle of it, which my boyfriend had conveniently forgotten to get that morning, and the first store they went to had conveniently been closed, so it had taken almost an hour. I excused myself to cry in the bathroom for a little while, and when I came out, no one had noticed. I think my friends had a lovely time, even though I was out of it. That night, he hugged me close and whispered about how much he loves me and couldn't wait to marry me. How proud he was at the party I set up, how he wanted more of them with a life with me. I'm at a friend's now, she doesn't know what's wrong. I told her I feel sick, and she's been trying to get me to just relax. I feel too ill to go to work, which I know is a pathetic excuse. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what I did. I want to ask them, but I don't think I could handle a conversation in a productive or mature manner. My boyfriend and I share everything, but I don't want anything. I want my self-respect back. I want my self-worth back. I want my trust in people back. I don't know. Maybe I didn't deserve them in the first place. I just don't know what to do. Edit. Thank you everyone, for your kind words. And some of your less kind, but in defensive of me words. It's good to be reminded that people are generally more kind than this. I think that's what I need most right now. My landlord has a reputation for being unforgiving with leases, but I'm going to go over everything with a lawyer and see what I can do. In the meantime, my work doesn't have a concrete schedule, so I'm going to be spending my nights working, and the morning, when my boyfriend is gone, home sleeping and packing my things. I'm going to try and hang out with some of my friends more to avoid being home, but I do not want to involve them in my problems, so I will avoid talking to them about it. I am hoping a lawyer will help me find a way out of the apartment. If not, I think everyone's right about me not staying even if I need to continue paying rent. I will try to find the cheapest place possible, and make what I can of it, even if I have to room with a family of 10 for 3 more months. I don't think I am going to confront him or her. I would rather just fade out of their lives. I may leave a letter to my boyfriend explaining everything when I do go, but I don't even want to do that, honestly. I just don't want to see or hear from either of them again. I want to forget about them and convince myself that some people are worth trusting, and it was only those two, and not me, who made the mistake. Again, thank you everyone for your support through this. You've helped me keep a level head and think through things. Update. Hello everyone. Well, I have forgiven them both, and my friend will be my maid of honor at our wedding. Haha, no, not at all, but I couldn't resist putting that. I'm so sorry. But, enough has happened where I feel most people will feel the situation is as over as I do. I'm sorry this is so long, but I want to answer as many questions as possible. So many people were either motivated or touched by my story, and I don't want them left wondering and worrying. I'm also sorry it took so long. I don't have a computer at the moment, so I've been using my friend's at work or at her home. I used it for the original post, as well. It actually caused a little confusion and embarrassment because I forgot to log out once, but that's not relevant. So, after the post, the first thing I did was text my ex that I needed to work all night so I could avoid going home. I work in a lab, so I just spend all night running my experiments while talking with a friend back in my hometown. I wanted time to break away from the bills, bank, everything before I told my ex that I knew. I know this deception is wrong, but I don't regret it. I still didn't know what I wanted to do with our mutual friends, but many people insisted I needed someone to talk to, so I called up an old friend who hadn't yet met my ex in person on enough occasions to consider him a friend. He was like an older brother to me growing up, and his wife like a wonderful older sister. I will call them M, big brother friend, and W, his wife. M is a lawyer, and so, I wanted to talk to him for 2 reasons, though I know every state has its own laws. But, it was good to tell someone in person, and have someone who knew me personally to tell me I wasn't wrong. W was absolutely furious for me, but M helped me calm down and set up a list of things I needed to do and get my name off of. By the end of the night, I felt ready, and I fell asleep on the couch in our neighboring lab for a few hours, until I could return to the apartment when my ex wouldn't be home. When I got there, I started to pack my things. I don't own very much. Most of the things are his. He likes things his way, and I never owned much in my life, so it wasn't too difficult. I also spent a few hours calling places to get my name off the various things we had both our names on. I'm ashamed to say that doing that made me break down crying on some poor person on the phone, and after that, I napped for a little while because I felt exhausted. I awoke to knock on the door. I opened it, and there were M and W. I couldn't believe it. They'd brought their son to M's mother's, and hopped the first plane they could to me. Their son sends me cute little letters sometimes, so they always have my addresses. W started crying and hugged me, while M looked over my lease agreement, and checked with my state's laws online for a bit to get a general idea. He then took me down to my landlord's office, while W started to pack up the rest of my things. Long story short, it turns out the landlord really likes me. There are these little kids who belong to our downstairs neighbors that I play with and help with their homework sometimes. Turns out, those are the landlord's nieces and nephew. The landlord was very upset for me and only told him that my ex had found someone else and I wanted to move out, and said he would let me out of the lease. He said if I wanted to find someone to sublet, I said I felt terrible, he'd help me set that up. I was very happy it ended so well. And made me spend the rest of the day breaking off my accounts, setting up a P.O. box and making sure my things got sent there, getting my things into storage, and setting up my own bank account. W suggested cleaning out the joint account out, but I only took what I knew I'd been saving up the last few months from each of my paychecks. It should be enough for me to continue living and paying off my student loans and the other things I'm still paying for. I didn't touch any other savings. We never split things one way or another, and even though over half the savings is technically mine, I just don't really want it. We also made sure the landlord saw the state the apartment was in when we left, so no one could say we broke anything. I did decide to leave a letter, saying I'd try to help find a subletter if I could, but I wouldn't make any promises, and I would do so through the landlord and only the landlord, and I signed it your ex-girlfriend. And, though I am both a little proud and a little ashamed of this, I did what a poster suggested as a joke and left 3 asparagus spears, with the last one snapped in half. I felt both terribly proud and embarrassed that I was so proud for doing that. M and W took me to their hotel room. They got 2 beds, so I could have my own. They wouldn't let me pay them back for the storage or for the room, or the lunch they made me eat. I wasn't hungry, but W stuffed my face, which is good, because she was right. I did need to eat. W took my phone. They said I wasn't allowed it that night, and I agreed and changed my Facebook status to single for me while I cried myself to sleep again. When I woke up, M and W caught me up. At first, X kept texting, asking where I was for an hour, but then after a while, my phone started to really blow up. I'm glad I didn't read the messages myself, especially not as they were coming. I don't think I could have handled it. It started with nothing happened, then to it only happened once, to she seduced me to I was drunk to she arped me to I don't know why I did it to lots and lots of apologies mixing with anger about how could I do this to him. I was supposed to become his wife. He's done so much for me. I felt so terrible. My ex-friend also started texting, trying to tell me about the same types of things that he'd seduced her. He'd arped her, she was sorry, why was I such a BTCH when she'd been arped, etc., etc. W wouldn't pick up their calls, and my voicemail box filled up after one voicemail. I'm glad I'm bad at deleting them now. A lot of people had told me to tell our mutual friends, but I was still undecided at that point. However, this problem solved itself. My ex-friend, I think in hopes I would believe her RP story, made a pubic Facebook post, saying how my boyfriend had arped her, and thus, was why I had broken up. My boyfriend, not wanting to be accused of RP, posted a screenshot of their texts. She deleted the entire post, but some of our friends had watched the drama unfold, and, well, now everyone knows the truth. Either way, I feel good I wasn't the one who said anything to anyone, though. I started getting messages from all my friends. Offers of support, offers of places to stay, all sorts of love. Friends I haven't spoken to in years have been sending my messages with sorts of support. People I played basketball with in middle school, people I played DD with in high school, people I played Shadowrun with and made cosplays with in college, people I took judo with in grad school. I was getting support and sympathy from everywhere. It was very overwhelming, and I ended up crying myself to sleep again. Haha, I've been doing this a lot. M and W stayed with me one more day, and paid for the hotel room for a few more days for me. I told them not to, but W said they paid, so I could live there or I could let it go to waste. After they left, some of my friends from a nearby city drove down to my hotel room within GameCube, and I got to play Smash Brothers for a few days with them, like we had in college. I kept my phone off, and generally put all my time and effort into my research and volunteer work. I changed my schedule up so my ex and ex-friend couldn't know when where to find me, and that worked for a while. I'll mention this in a bit. At work one day, I heard a student saying how their friend was looking to switch apartments with someone. She couldn't stand her terrible roommates. They were loud, rude, obnoxious, ruined her relationships, were always dirty, etc. I've had terrible roommates, much worse than that, and I survived fine. I could definitely manage until December, and this girl sounded like she really needed somewhere to go. So, I met up with the girl and my landlord, and then he met up with her and my ex, supposedly, and I met up with hers, and we essentially switched apartments. I don't know how my ex took this, but my landlord made it happen, so I guess he really wanted to rent, or it really appealed to him how pretty that girl was. She is very fit and very attractive, she takes very good care of herself. So, I moved into this new place. I admit I was pretty stupid and didn't think to see it in person before signing everything, and just looked at the pictures she'd offered. M chewed me out for this later. I was still sort of in an emotional haze and just wanted a place to sleep a few hours a day that wasn't with friends. She lived in a house with 5 gentlemen. She got a bedroom and bathroom all to herself, and they've been letting her have it for a fraction of my half of the rent back in our 2-bedroom, 1-bath. They helped me move, they helped me clean up the girl's room. It was horrendous, she'd left trash and stains everywhere, and her bathroom was worse, but I've cleaned many a bathroom in my life. When they saw I had no bed, one of them even made me take his air mattress. I'm fine with sleeping on a blanket on the floor, I did a lot growing up. They are also nice graduate students and students, who all like video games, sports, cartoons, and comic books, all things I love as well. They are also nice and polite, and the rest of the house was in great shape, so I have to admit, I was really confused. I brought some treats I made at a friend's place one day, and they let me play Mortal Kombat with them, and they cleared things up for me a bit. As it turns out, the girl was the terrible roommate, and they were the ones demanding she leave. She tried to cause drama and fights between all these men, had been attacking the girlfriend. One of them had rest are single, but this guy's been with this girl since high school, constantly stealing and breaking their things, constantly acting terrible if they brought any girls over and embarrassing them if they had guys over. They had asked her to leave, and she'd been making their lives even more of a hell for the past month or so. I called my old landlord to tell him about the state her room had been in, but he'd laughed and said my ex deserved it. I was rather shocked, but, well, I don't really know what the right thing to do anymore about this is. I don't want to talk to my ex about it, but maybe I need to warn him? I don't know. M says it's not my business, and my other friends do too, but I feel like I'm in the wrong here. I already love the new place I'm living in. My housemates appreciate me cooking and demanded to pay for all my groceries since I make food for everyone. They made a food jar that they'd put their money into, that could be used to buy food for everyone. They even have a washing machine inside. It's never had to not leave to wash my clothes, I feel like a princess. They've let me wash their clothes too. One day, when I thought they weren't home, I was singing along to a song and dancing, and I didn't hear them come in. Instead of making fun of me, they ended up all dancing along until I noticed they were there. I couldn't stop laughing seeing weightlifters dancing and singing along to single ladies, and all that bass was too much for me. My face hurt from laughing and smiling so much that day. Even better, they have a dog. A gorgeous husky. My ex was allergic, but I've always wanted one so much. And they let me feed him, and walk him, and play with him, and they even let him sleep with me. He's so amazingly gentle and loving, and I have problems sleeping alone, and he makes me feel so safe. Anyway, onto some bad. My ex tried to show up at my work a few times when I was there, but my lab has good security, and thankfully, I had always been the one to visit his work for lunch, so none of the security here recognizes him, and wouldn't let him anywhere close. I told them later to please not let him in and thanked them for not doing so until then. Unfortunately, the one I was first to talk with was my ex-friend. She waited at one of the places where I volunteer at for an entire day, hoping I would show up, and I did. I tried to leave before she saw me, but she did, and she grabbed me and demanded I talk to her. I told her I had nothing to say, and she kept demanding I talk. I told her she wasn't the friend I thought she wasn't my friend at all. I knew they'd been doing it a long time, I knew it wasn't RP, I knew they did it during the dinner, too. I broke up with him, and I'm not her friend anymore, either. I told her I wasn't going to even tell anyone, but she and my ex did that for me, and I was sorry they messed up, but she should never, ever lie about RP. She constantly tried to cut me off and make things up, but I wouldn't budge, and in the end, she broke down crying and apologizing and begging me to still be her friend, that I was like a sister. I said a sister wouldn't have time with her sister's boyfriend, there was no reason in the world for that. I tried to leave, but she kept blocking my path, and I was scared if I so much as touched her, she'd charge me with assault or something. I started crying too, because seeing her so hurt made me ache too, despite everything. She broke down further, though. She admitted what I think may be the truth. She said she was always so jealous of me in my happy life. We came from the same place as kids, not true. I was extremely poor with a family involved with abuse and crime, while she had a loving middle-class family. She's always made up reasons to not appreciate them and pretended they were abusive for doing things like grounding her for smoking, but I ended up so much better. I do have a job I love and had a stable relationship, but overall, I'm a boring person. She goes to parties and tries drugs and went across Europe and Asia, and she was the one with whirlwind romances and men always wanting her. Things she's said to me as examples of why her life is so fun throughout the years, and she always told me how boring I was and how she was the lucky one. So, I didn't quite understand, but I don't think I ever quite will. When my boyfriend approached her to look for rings, turns out he actually did, so I guess I had that, sort of, at least. She just wanted to see what I had, so she spent the day flirting with him, and apparently, practically tore his pants off when he dropped her off at her place. He was surprised but didn't fight it, and they both enjoyed the thrill so much it just kept happening. Seems pretty premeditated, considering they planned how to meet up, but okay. She also then admitted she just went to the doctor and found out she's 2 months pregnant, and doesn't know what to do. I started crying a lot harder, but all I told her was good luck with her pregnancy, but I wasn't, and was never going to be, her friend again, and then I just kept apologizing. Thankfully, someone at the center heard me crying and came over, and it scared my ex-friend away. I called my ex-friend's mother and sister, and told them my ex-friend really needed them right now, and they may want to come to her place in person. I told them I couldn't help. It broke my heart, because her mother and sister were like family to me when I needed them most, but I'm not going to try and ruin a girl's reputation with her family. I admit, I'm horribly, irrationally jealous about her being pregnant. I've wanted a baby so badly the last few years, but he said he wasn't ready, and I stayed on birth control and he used a condom, and in my friend's description she made it clear she's gotten him not to use one. I'd never tried to ask him not to, but for it to be so easy? And at the same time, I'm so sad for my ex-friend. She's incredibly religious, and I know being pregnant outside of marriage is destroying her. But I called who I could, and as terrible as I feel for not being there, I need to keep her away from me. I just keep reminding myself that no matter how much I'd want to help, I'm not in a state where I could, anyway. I hope that's the right way to think. For those wondering, I have gotten tested for STDs pretty much right away. My lab is next to a hospital that I volunteer at, and so far, I'm clear, but I'll get checked again every few months until I'm sure I don't have something like HIV. I don't feel like my ex-friend would have this, but I never imagined she'd have time with my ex without a seeing either, so I don't know how honest she'd been to me about her previous time exploits anymore. Or my ex either, for that matter. My ex has tried to contact me through a lot of people, but none of my friends are allowing him to know where I'm living or what I'm doing, and are not agreeing to bring me his letters or other messages. He's come to my friends crying and saying he messed up, but my friends have been rather cold to him so far. I told them they don't need to hate him, but they told me I didn't get to choose that for them, and they're right. People in my last post convinced me I need to let them feel what they'll feel, and it isn't my fault. I'm still crying constantly, questioning things and looking back, but so many people have stepped up to help me. Old friends, mutual friends, new friends, a dog, even strangers on the internet. I feel so absolutely loved and lucky. I have my work to focus on, volunteering, getting to know my new roommates' friends. I'm keeping busy. I even mentioned going to the gym but being too shy to, and 3 of my roommates jumped at the chance to help me, so I've been going to the gym a bit too. Everyone now knows about my ex and ex-friend, and many have gone out of their way to make sure I don't interact with either. My friends are constantly ushering me everywhere. A few are checking my messages and texts for me, to delete any sent from unknown numbers for me. I'm in the process of just getting a new phone and phone number. I've not accepted any new friend requests after blocking both of them except my new roommates and the girlfriend one of them has. She's been amazingly nice to me, and I have a friend also checking my other box and blocking people from there for me. I don't need to worry about nudes or anything of that sort, because I never took any not attractive enough to warrant them, haha. I've blocked all non-work related emails from my work email, and I just deleted my other old email addresses and started a whole new one. They're mostly for spam, anyway. I will admit, a few people have asked me out. And I will admit, the idea of ever dating again, ever allowing someone in like that again, terrifies me. I have set up to talk to a therapist. I've had one when I was younger, and it never helped. In fact, it made things a lot worse for a long time. Yes, I tried several therapists. Yes, ones who specialize in different things. Yes, ones who tried different techniques and approaches. It just made me feel worthless as a teen when I couldn't change my outlooks, but I'm hoping it may help in this situation. I wouldn't know how to date, even if I wanted to. Anyway, I've only ever been with my ex. I never thought anyone else would ever want me, nor did I ever want anyone to. So, I'm going to see if I can ever get over that. Overall, I'm hurt and betrayed and terrified, but I also feel at peace and so grateful to other people. I feel like that chapter of my life is closed and a beautiful new one is beginning. I feel free. I feel happy. I feel loved. Thanks so much, you everyone. I don't expect there to be anything else I need to update anyone with. Update 2. I honestly didn't want to post an update. So many people seemed so happy and proud of me. So many said it sounded like a fairy tale. I kept wishing it would end up good and fine, and I thought it could for so long, and I know I'm probably a huge disappointment to everyone who wished me well. But I feel like I learned something important, and maybe, somewhere, someone will read my story and not make my mistake. I wanted to clear some things up quickly. A lot of people seem to think my singing and dancing made me like a Disney princess. I just wanted to clarify I didn't do it from joy. It's a habit I have because I fear silence. When I was young, if the house went quiet, it meant something terrible was about to happen. I can't sit in a silent room, and hearing my own voice, knowing I can make sounds, scream if I need to, it keeps me from being anxious, especially in new places. But I have to admit, so many people thinking it's like a Disney movie helps me feel much less like a freak for it. So I wanted to thank everyone for that. Also, some people seem to think my old landlord forced my ex into something. I just wanted to clarify that he did no such thing. All he did was present the situation, say he found someone who could take my part of the lease, introduce them, and my ex accepted and she accepted. No one was forced into anything, no one was threatened or bullied or anything else people seem to imagine. My ex just didn't want to put up much of a fight over it, after meeting the girl. I guess it would help to mention she's a very, very attractive young lady. Now, I guess I should explain what's happened so far. I still remember one poster pointing out that my ex-friend did what she did because she was missing something. That resonated with me, and after a lot of struggling I reached out to her. I know this will upset many people, and even the poster, who said that this was no reason to continue any interactions with her, but I want to say now I do not regret this. At that point, I had so many friends helping me, and she had no one. I couldn't feel angry anymore, not for someone who was pregnant, I only felt guilty for all our friends turning on her like they did. I spoke to her. Told her I forgave her, but couldn't be the friend to her I used to be. I think this helped me a lot, and my friends seeing me forgive her made them calm down, as well. She seemed to realize how unhappy she had been. She wanted to change so much for her baby. She honestly did. She stopped all of her drug and drinking habits. She started to exercise, to eat right, to read baby books, to babysit, to volunteer with me a bit. She went to the doctor, worked harder at work, and genuinely seemed to be working as hard as she could. She was so happy. She smiled the way she used to in college. I never realized how much I missed it. I started to feel so happy for her. One sad part was that my ex wanted no part of it at all. He blocked her and would not contact her, and said he needed a paternity test. She didn't want to risk the test while it was in the womb, and she said she didn't want his support if he didn't want to give it, at least while she was pregnant. This is where it gets truly sad. She lost the baby around 3-4 months. She was beyond devastated. I don't know if I've ever seen a person so destroyed. I came to the hospital once I heard, and she was just so broken. I don't even have words to describe what I saw. She lashed out a bit at me, said if I hadn't been in her life, this wouldn't have happened. I don't think I can really blame her for anything she said in that state, though. Her mother came. Her sisters came. They supported her. She told me she wanted me to leave. I did. I haven't seen or spoken to her since then. I did send an email a few days ago, telling her that if she still wanted me in her life, that I didn't take anything she said personally and I was there for her, but she hasn't responded. My friends don't know very much about how she is. Her mother and sister just tell them she's working through it. I'm sorry I don't have more, but I don't want to cause her any more pain by prying. Unfortunately, that isn't the only thing that went a bit downhill. And though this was an unfortunate outcome, I don't feel ashamed until this next part. I had been doing well. My roommates were, as I said, very kind and generous to me. They didn't mind my weird habits, they didn't pry as to why I did so many odd things. I felt very safe and welcome with them. I had no reason to ever feel down, but I started to feel badly after my friend's situation. I stopped volunteering as often. I went out less with friends because I was, in a way, mourning her baby and mourning that newfound happiness she had found only to have lost. But just as I started to pick myself up again, my ex finally found me. I'd been picking myself up dinner. I tried to run, but he purposely cornered me, and I was too scared to elbow away from him. I was too scared to make a sound because I'm a coward, and he kept his voice low, so he didn't draw any attention as he started to tell me what I imagine he'd been wanting to tell me for a while. He ended up telling me what a waste of space I am, how my friend wasn't the only one he'd cheated on me with. How all the times he'd had business trips had been him finding other women. How the only reason he stayed with me was because I was broken and ugly and no one else would ever want the burden of taking care of me. That I was a moron for leaving, that I gave up my only chance with someone who would put up with me. How all our friends now see him as a bad guy, when really, he was the only one who was ever really willing to put up with me. That he couldn't believe I was the one to break up with him, when it was so obvious that I should have been grateful to him for even giving me the time of day, much less years of his life. He made sure to bring up almost every insecurity I have, and made sure to leave, thanking me for moving out, because he was having a good time with his new roommate, who he said was now his actually attractive and not whiny and pathetic girlfriend. After that I just gave up. I went beyond numb. I don't know why I'm so pathetic. I don't know why I couldn't suck it up. But I just gave up completely. I sort of turned off. I went home, and I hid in my room. I managed to go to work every few days, but eventually, I was fired, rightfully so. I stopped volunteering. I stopped talking to my friends. My roommate's dog was the only one I interacted with for a long time. I didn't really eat, so my savings went almost entirely to my rent. It was about the only thing I could remember to force myself to deal with on time. I asked my roommates to tell my friends I wasn't home. They let me get away with that for I think 2 months. Sorry, the time is really a blur to me, to be perfect honest. I was sleeping almost the entire time, and kept my blinds closed, so I wouldn't need to know if it was night or day. I think I went days without showering, before some of my friends sort of bullied their way in. They tried to force me back onto my feet for days, but I was just too pathetic to manage anything without being forced or dragged. They finally told M and W. I'd been lying to them, every time they called me. Telling them I was fine or busy. W went between trying to be gentle with me and being infuriated with me, like she had every right to. Nothing she said got through to me, though, until she told me I was going to be moving and going to be living with M and W. I didn't believe them, I thought it was an empty threat. Then W sent me a photograph of their son setting up a guest room. A bed, stuffed animals, and pictures obviously drawn of him. She sent me a video of him waving and kissing the camera and saying, "Auntie's coming to live with us, Mama said she's my birthday present." I love Auntie. I thought I'd cried every bit of water I had left in my body, but it turned out I had so much more. I sobbed and sobbed, but for the first time in months, I was happy again, even if just a little bit. I don't know why nothing else could snap me out of this. I don't know if it was realizing there were those who still loved me, someone who was too young and innocent to want to lie to spare my feelings. I don't know if it was the realization that I had almost forgotten Jake's birthday. But I finally stood up and took a shower, and I was finally able to talk and act almost like a human being again. I was basically entirely out of money. I has just enough for this last month's rent, after selling a lot of my belongings. My lease with my roommates is up at the end of August, and I already found a nice graduate student to take over for me. He's subleasing this summer with a few other students but needs a permanent place for the year. My roommates seem to very much like him, and he seems responsible, so I feel good about him taking over for me. My friends have helped me send over what little I wanted to bother with over to M and W's, through the mail. It turned out, it was only about 2 boxes worth of things I cared about enough to bother. They were serious about me moving, and M said that if I didn't accept the ticket to them, W was going to literally fly over and drag me on a plane, and I think she's 100% serious. Now that I'm awake again, I can't get over how pathetic I was. How I allowed my ex that much power over me. Because it wasn't him, yes, he treated me badly, yes, he said terrible things. But I was the one who accepted what he said. I was the one who let him have that type of power over me. A person who, so clearly, was so not who I thought he was. I let him have that much power over me. I was too weak to stand up and move on, but, at the same time, I don't regret that I had opened my heart to him. He'd been one of the first people I let in without them forcing their way in, which M had to do. And though this one time, with my ex, did bite me, it didn't with all my other friends. I became so lost in myself, so lost in my pain and wallowing in my sadness, thinking I was so pathetic for being kind and letting people in. I completely ignored that the reason I had so many friends who loved me was because I was so willing to be nice. So willing to give people chances. So willing to help people without expecting anything back, and only hoping for the best. I had all of that, yet I was so weak. I let myself completely and utterly forget that, and I almost let myself lose who I am. I guess what I realized is that thought it's important to be kind and nice and forgiving, it's also important to be strong. Strong enough not to give bad people power over you. Strong enough to remember all the good in your life when one part tries to bring back all the bad that had happened long ago. I'm ashamed to post this, I'm ashamed to admit how terribly I failed. But many people sent me private messages, saying how I inspired them. And though I may not be inspirational, I hope I can at least be a lesson in what not to do. I hope that, somewhere, someone reading this may be considering letting a bad person bring them down and then remember what I learned. That it isn't your fault if someone takes advantage of you. But the only one who lets them have power over you is you. I'm sorry this wasn't a happier update. I'm sorry it wasn't inspirational. But honestly, I'm happy. I'm so looking forward to really starting over, to being a bigger part of M&W's family. I don't know what the future will bring at this point, but for the first time in what feels like forever, I'm honestly hopeful that it will be good and I will be able to face it even if it's not always.